Welcome to another edition of the Burrow podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and I'm joined today by Mark Anthony Rayner. Rayner, how you doing, mate?
Good, buddy. Mate, not too bad. How's yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I believe you're still recovering from that broken foot. Well, it wasn't from kicking walls, was it? Watching South, getting frustrated watching South at all?
No, mate, this was a accident at work, mate. But I have certainly felt like kicking things of late, watching the boys go around, mate. But yeah, no, sadly, it's just a work accident.
Yeah, it certainly is a frustrating time for the fans and the players themselves. No doubt they're frustrated. We've seen a few weeks ago, it was Jai Arrow coming off after the Storm loss and wouldn't shake anyone's hands. And certainly we're feeling a lot of the pain as well, aren't we?
Yeah, it's been a frustrating year again. Form injuries, which I suppose they kind of go hand in hand a little bit, mate. But yeah, I mean, look, there's not much we can do about it, mate. But just keep hanging in there and hoping that the boys can give us a couple more wins to finish up the season.
Well, you bring up a good point about the injuries. I kind of think there's certain games that we win had we didn't have the injuries we had. I think we beat the Cowboys early in the year. I think we beat the Knights. They were at full strength. We had a lot of reserve graders running out that day. Even Manly the other day. The Warriors is another one. Even the Dolphins, I believe, you had someone like Cam Murray and Brandon Smith defending in the middle. We don't open up that easily, but here we are. And one thing I don't hope is that the club use this as an excuse moving forward, because there's certainly a lot of cracks outside of our injuries.
Certainly, mate. And I think Wayne's really good at he's really good at not blaming any of that stuff. You know what I mean? I think you look at other clubs, you look at clubs like Melbourne, and they have that, that wonderful next man up mentality, and they still find a way to win games, even though they might be missing, two or three of their sort of star players, mate. But we just don't have the depth in our squad, mate, to cover that stuff, unfortunately.
We'll talk a bit about retention and recruitment a bit later, because I want to go a bit more in depth of that and where we're at now, because there has been a bit of talk about our performances and our roster as well. So we will discuss that a bit more. But we did go down 30 points to 12 against Manly. I thought it was a very good start by us defensively. I thought we were looking really good. Unfortunately, our attack, I think we had about 2 or 3 chances inside that first 15 minutes, and we come up empty, and our attack was very pedestrian.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly there, mate. Yeah, I don't know. I can't put my finger on exactly what the go is there with that. Sometimes everything looks wonderful at training, but then you put it into a real life game, and it doesn't all of a sudden doesn't look so great. The problem is sometimes, mate, is you get a little bit more sort of, free run at training to use plays and put plays on, etc. And when you have a little bit of inexperience, not saying that, Jack Whiten's certainly not inexperienced, and he was probably, I suppose, one of our better players alongside Tallis Duncan on Sunday, but Jamie Humphries is not where he sort of needs to be at the moment in terms of leading the boys around. And there was a couple of other players, mate, that didn't have the greatest games that usually play quite well. So, yeah, I don't know, mate, back to the drawing board.
Yeah, well, you look at it, and early on we convert those chances and possibly be up 12-0 after 15 minutes. It's a totally different ball game. The confidence starts rising within the players, the belief in that. Yeah, and off the back of that, scoring tries, you got a lot more enthusiasm in defence. Instead, we kind of went the other way. Manly had an opportunity. They spun the ball left and opened up where you had the right side of defence in Jacob Host, Campbell Graham and Tyrone Munro. I thought one of the times Tyrone was at fault, but I felt sorry for him one stage where Campbell didn't trust his inside man. He came in and left a 2-on-1 for Tyrone Munro, and it didn't matter what he did there. They were going to score a try.
Yeah, and mate, that, I mean, look, you got one of the one of the best halfbacks and one of the best, centre three quarters fullbacks in their backline, mate. And the slightest thing, they're going to pull you apart. Cherry Evans and Trebojevic are world class footballers, mate. Have been for a lot of years. And when you give them a little bit of latitude, they'll certainly make you pay. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I wasn't too impressed with Manly. I thought we were there for the picking and right for the picking, and especially the second half. I thought they probably did take their foot off the brake a little bit. They don't have that killer instinct that we spoke about with the Dolphins or Melbourne Storm either. And whilst they did enough to win, they weren't impressive in doing so. It was 6 tries to 3 in the end. We had a couple more players playing in that game. You put Latrell Mitchell, you put Cody Walker, and who knows the difference that makes.
No, 100%. Manly aren't doing anything this year, mate. They're rubbish. It doesn't matter to me, mate. They like you said, mate, they did enough to win the game, but they're not an impressive football side, so they're not going to bother anybody, mate, when it comes to the big games at the end of the season.
Well, I'll tell you, I'd certainly rather be in their position than our position right now, and having those few extra wins on the board. They're sitting 8th right now, and I guess that just highlights the weakness of this competition.
Yeah, exactly, mate. We've got a bye this weekend and another one in the second last round, I believe, mate. And anything can happen, mate, in this comp. But we're going to have to certainly pull our finger out of our backsides, mate, if we'd like to make a late charge, because it's getting away from us a little bit now. And like Wayne said, mate, confidence is a huge thing, and we just don't have any at the moment.
Yeah, well, I can't see a world where we make the top 8 this year at all. I'm resigned to the fact, and there's just a bad feel amongst the fans, and we've got a special guest here right now saying hello.
Special guest Kiki, go on, jump down.
So want to join us for an interview there. So
yeah, she's been speaking rough about the Rabbits all week, mate. Don't get her on.
Yeah, but you just have to look at the comments, and I know there's a lot of people that just lose it whenever we lose. Even we could win 10 in a row, and there's those people that as soon as you lose, they're out attacking everything that they possibly can. But I've noticed a lot of the guys that are very positive. I'm one of the guys that try to be positive as much as I can, and I'm struggling right now. I really feel like the Dolphins game really deflated me. I'm not sure how you felt, because I was very positive about the Dolphins game. I thought with that side we named, we're going to give it our best crack and possibly win, start getting our season back on track. Instead, the opposite happened. And I went to the game on Sunday just feeling like I'm turning up for appearances. I didn't feel confident at all. I've already resigned to the fact that we're going to lose. That's how I felt. A lot of fans felt the same. And even though that's what we feel, it still happens. It doesn't take the disappointment of it away either. I don't know how you felt, if you felt confident at all, but a lot of fans didn't.
Nah, certainly not, mate. It's not like, a few years ago where you knew that you were going to be a chance of winning this just about every single game that we played. Now it's more like when the games come around, it's almost like, well, how much are we going to lose by this week? It's a different feel for me in terms of this team. I have no faith whatsoever that they can do a job. And even against, teams like the Titans, Dragons, we might be able to get a win or two there, but I think that might be where it's going to be at for the rest of this season, I think.
Well, again, it all depends on injuries, who comes back and how they came back, whether Cody, when he does come back, whether he can get through a game or two, because we're seeing when he comes back, he lasts half the game. Brandon Smith, I thought, that back end of the game, I thought he looked really good when he played lock. He opened up our attack, and we started looking really good. We scored 2 quick tries off the back of him, and you could just see his involvement was so high there. So it's just a shame that he's now copped another injury. That tackle, I mean, we talk about hip drops, and they want to define what a hip drop is, but that tackle is just as bad as any sort of definition of what a hip drop is. And I really feel like the wrestling in the game and that sort of tackle is only going to end up one way.
Yeah, it's yeah, they need to definitely do something about it. But I don't know, mate. These things, yeah, I don't know. It's on one hand, mate, it's you know shit that had happened to him, and but on the other hand, mate, it's it's rugby league, and these things do happen sometimes. And I don't know. I'd like to have faith that if they did deem it a really bad one, that he would have been cited for it. But as it stands, mate, he wasn't. So I don't know what their definitions are of it, and what our definitions are of it are obviously polar opposites. So
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
hard luck for the Chiefs.
we've seen earlier in the year Jack Whiten penalised against the Cowboys, which turned the momentum of the game completely. Great tackle by Jack Whiten. They deemed that to be a hip drop tackle and had no effect at all. It was a beautiful tackle, and he was doing it in a sense where he was running a player down, where that was just a lazy effort by Matt Lodge, and that was only going to end up one way, and that was always going to be an injury, whether it be an ankle, calf, or knee or whatever. But that was just an ordinary effort of a tackle, and I really feel that not to be penalised for that. In the moment, there wasn't penalised, and we've lost him now. You can call it the season, so which is a real shame, because I would have loved to seen him start developing more and more combinations to go into the off season and have that under his belt and come out fresh. They're saying 6 to 8 weeks, so there's a chance that he could play the last 2 or 3 games, but the season's going to be gone by then anyway.
Yeah, it was a lazy tackle by a lazy footballer, mate. Just one of those things that I don't rate Lodge at all. I think he's a grub. But yeah, these things happen, mate. And yeah, I wish Brandon all the best in his recovery, and hope for for our sake we can, and his sake, that we can might be able to see him for a couple of games towards the end of the year.
You just had to look at his jersey presentation. South put the video up there, and it was certainly very touching. And you've seen how much the colours that he's wearing means to him. It takes him back to his junior club, and it's the reason why he was a South supporter as a kid. And you just see a real difference in him, what this club means to him compared to when he was at the Roosters. And it certainly shows there. His demeanour is totally different now, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, mate. And that's what happens when you sign with a club that's got a bit of soul about it, mate. I wouldn't feel anything if I signed with that football club, mate, the Roosters. But he epitomises, I suppose, what this club's about, mate. And yeah, it's just like I said, mate, it's just a shame that that happened to him. But he's here now. We've got him for at least the next 2 years, I believe. Hopefully
Yes.
he can recover, mate. And if he gets back on the field by the end of the season, all well and good. But if he doesn't, big pre-season with all the boys, and come back stronger next year.
He was certainly tiring early on in his first stint, wasn't he? He forgot his footy boots as well. He was that anxious to get out there, and I believe his partner or his wife or whatever had to go to Rebel appoint some new footy boots.
We went out to my home turf up here in Penrith, Brothers home ground on Friday night to watch the reserve grade guys. And I mean, I had a look at the team sheet prior to them running out, and watched them warm up down on the bottom field where we usually play. And then obviously I saw that Dodd was in the side, and 1B Smith wasn't anywhere to be seen. So it was pretty obvious to me that that Wayne was going to play him. But yeah, I thought maybe the better option might have been to run him back through reserve grade for a couple of games till he sort of got his footy lungs back. But anyway, I'm not Wayne Bennett, mate.
Yeah, a lot of people are complaining about that. I've seen a few people complain about that and saying that, oh, well, it's on Wayne that he got injured. And I think that's a huge stretch, because the injury we've seen last week, Bud Sullivan, broken leg in reserve grade. We've seen it with Lockie Elias last year in reserve grade. So it's not like he's protected playing New South Wales Cup. Those injuries could happen. And it wasn't an injury because I had someone trying to say he came back 2 weeks too early. And it's just ridiculous comments like that, the overreaction from fans. And I get that we're feeling like shit about this team right now. I get it because we're all hurting. But then you look at the things that people complain about. There's things that we certainly can complain about. There's a lot to do with recruitment, retention, team selections. I think we can argue. But when you're complaining about a guy that's been off for 11 months, coming back, that they deemed that it was 2 weeks too early. I mean, he was going to play. He was going to play New South. He already said that he was going to play New South Wales Cup this week on Friday. So we're talking about a 5-day difference, and that 5 days is going to make a huge difference in an 11-month recovery. It's just ridiculous that people are doing that shit.
Well, my wonderful dad has a saying, mate, and it was, you can't put brains in statues. And unfortunately, when you're born a statue, that's how you're going to leave this world, mate. And like you said, mate, we understand people's frustration. That could have very well happened in reserve grade on Friday night as well. So it's just one of those things where that happened. It's not a case of, coming back 2 games too early or whatever that person said. It's footy. These things happen, whether it happened on Friday night or Sunday, makes no difference. It still happened. and we just have to move on now.
Yeah, well, I spoke before about him forgetting his footy boots. I remember a game. It would have been, I think it was 2013 or something. We're playing the Sharks at Shark Park, and Bully Isaac Luke ends up driving all the way to Accor Stadium, ANZ Stadium back then. I went to the wrong ground and had to quickly dash to get to the right ground. So.
My poor old mum did that one night, mate. I think we were playing at I think the Chooks at Allianz or something like that, or the old Allianz, and she turned up at a call.
Shout out to you, Janet.
Bless her.
Yeah, well, you got your son throwing you under the bus there, eh?
I'm red hot for it, mate.
You sure? But yeah, it's just funny because Brandon Smith's favourite player growing up, and the player that he looked up to most was Bully, so he tries to match him there and forgetting his boots. So
he's emulating him 100%, mate.
We look at team selections, and I know with a lot of injuries, you can do a lot of things, and a lot of people are throwing in suggestions as well as what should have happened. And Ewan Aiken gets injured, he pulls out, and we put Tallis Duncan into the centres, Jacob Host starting second row. Ryan Gray comes into the bench. There are baffling ones, but some of them we do kind of go, what the hell's he doing there? Tallis Duncan in centre. Yeah, for me, and I know you've mentioned before to me off air that Tallis was our best player.
Yeah, I just feel like at the moment, mate, you could just about put Tallis anywhere and he'd do a job for you. He's a very versatile footballer, and he's really impressing me lately. He had a little bit of a form dip there a little, couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, whenever it was, but he's really bounced back well, and he's playing really, really good footy. I thought Jack had a pretty reasonable game, trying his best on Sunday as well. But yeah, I mean, we just don't have that winning mentality, mate, at the moment, and it's very, very hard to find that when it's gone walkabout on you.
I thought AJ was very admirable at playing at fullback. It's been
Definitely.
a while since he's played there, and you still, though, you look at him chiming into the back line, and you feel like Latrell. If only that was Latrell there. So he doesn't have the same kind of. They don't have the same emergency getting to AJ that they do for Latrell, because we've seen in State of Origin where he did that try. He's in the air and he's only just touched it for a split second, and it's off to Brian To'o for a try there. And
yep.
So I certainly think, but AJ didn't let us down there. But the other one that I want to talk about is Ryan Gray, and him being selected over Pete Mamazelos. I'm sure there is a reason why Bennett chose it. I think it's probably more defensively, because defensively he made something like, what did he make? He made 42 tackles. He only missed 3, which was good, but his work out of dummy half was just horrendous.
Yeah, that's that's going to fall under the mysteries of the unexplained banner, that one, mate. I was as shocked as anybody to see Pete, in that reserve grade list on Friday night, and I don't know, man. It's weird. Wayne's making all these really strange sort of decisions at the moment, and I don't know, mate. We might have to get the old fella tested for dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that soon, because he's getting a bit bizarre the older he gets. Uncle Wayne.
Look, there could be a method to his madness that we just don't see. As I said, it could have something to do with Pete's defence. I know earlier in the season, Pete was very high in missed tackles. And Ryan Gray seems to be really good if he was defending, but I mean, he was better suited to playing a lock role there, because there was one stage when we scored those 2 quick tries, we were attacking the line again, and we knew Brandon Smith was carving up, and all of a sudden he just looked like a headless chook running out of dummy half, trying to go, oh, who am I passing to? Who am I passing to? And just throws it to a flat Brandon Smith that's like all of a sudden got the ball. In the end, it just disjointed our attack. And then Keon got the ball, and then he tried to get through. He did an offload to Brandon Smith's feet and dropped the ball. But I know a lot of people say, well, that's on Keon, that's on Brandon Smith or whatever. But really, it goes back to that disjointedness from the dummy half there.
100%, mate. It's winning the ruck is pivotal in rugby league, and if you're not winning the ruck, mate, then you're going nowhere. And you're right, mate. He popped up like a headless chook. You're right. I mean, I don't know whether that's a communication thing from the halves or whatever, or whether Jack or Jamie was calling it either side of the ruck there, confusing him a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but he need to be a lot more fluent out of there, and I think that's where Pete is a little bit more fluent out of that dummy half spot. So you what are you doing, mate? You're taking a very good attacking dummy half out of the game for a good defensive dummy half, but then you'll lose that very, very important dummy half, attacking dummy half out of our attack. Yeah, I don't know. Personally, with me, mate, I'd just go Pete Mamazelis and lock him in.
Well, you kind of say, you want your defence to be good, and that's fine. But if you're not scoring points, you've only got so much room for your defence. So if you're scoring 1 or 2 tries a game, you've got to keep them to 1 try a game, and our defence is not good enough for it. And I'm not saying that would have been the difference between winning and losing. I don't think there's a world that we win there if we have Pete playing. I'm not saying that at all, because we weren't good enough, and I don't think our attack opens up that much better. But it would have been good to see, because you look at the stats of the forwards and getting them to run onto it really well, get some meters. Outside of Keon in the forwards, Keon made 163 run meters. But you're looking at Lachlan Hubner, 7 runs for 34 meters, just reading them out now. David Wiley, 9 runs for 59. Jacob Host, 8 runs for 47. Ryan Gray had 2 runs for 2 meters. Saliba Havili, 5 runs for 35 meters. Junior, who was the best outside of Keon, 13 runs for 92 metres, and Jai Arrow, 9 runs for 58 metres. They're not great stats at all for forwards, and you just wonder, is it the work from dummy half that's not getting them on the ball good enough?
Yeah, probably, mate. Quite possibly, and I'd say that's a big part. And I also noticed that, like, Manly's post-contact meters were really, really good as well. Like they were hitting the line, mate, and they were marching another 5 or so meters downfield as well.
I'll actually bring up a stat for you just quickly that actually debunks that, because overall we had 192 runs to their 190, yet they made 1,501 where we made 1,309. But in post-contact meters, they made 505 post-contact meters compared to our 485. So that wasn't that much difference. And it's funny what you do see, but I think where they made a lot of their room was Zaro actually able to, I guess, with the line speed. Their line speed was a lot more effective than us. But as far as post-contact meters go, there wasn't much difference between the two sides there, as you can see what I pointed out.
Yeah, well, that sort of that probably lends to the two teams that aren't that great up the guts defensively. And but yeah, I just thought, mate, like I don't know, and as well they were without Molokawaa too, and he's a massive figure for them out there on that edge. Every time I looked at the game, it just seemed, mate, that their forwards were able to trundle up quite a bit of yardage out of their in and around the middle of the ruck there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. We're not brick walling our defence, mate. It's
No, well, our line speed is very slow, and we've seen it all year. We're waiting rather than moving up. You see teams like Canterbury, Melbourne, the Raiders, their line speed in defence is just great, and it's no coincidence they're some of the best defensive teams in the competition, and they do it relentlessly. We started really well. Our line speed in the first 15 minutes was really good, and it just disappeared. It's a shame, but and I get, because we are low on troops, it's hurting us. And you put Cam Murray in the middle there. He's quick runs. He gets 10 metres a run, but it's not just that. It's his quick play of the ball where the next guy is going to get another 10, 12 metres off the back of it. And all of a sudden you've got them going backwards. And that's something that we've missed hugely this year. Lockie Hubner's done well in replacing him, but he's starting to kind of see the effects from playing a full season, because he's been playing like a lot off the bench for the Dolphins. He played a couple of games here or there. He played a lot of Queensland Cup last year. So he hasn't had this full season effect where he's playing each and every week, mainly as a starter. And it's a new role for him as well. And you're seeing the effects of a long season on him.
Yeah, there's a couple of lads in that squad, mate, that are starting to tire towards the back end of this year. But you know what, mate? I think that they're most certainly going to be better for the run this year. I think he's made, he tackles his ass off. He does his best. I thought the start of the season he was up there with our best players consistently every single week, Lockie.
100%.
But I do think, mate, that that guys like him are going to benefit greatly from this year, and they'll certainly be better for the run next season.
Yeah, well, I want to touch base on Campbell Graham. He's just had a horrific time the last 2 years. That sternum injury. We go back to that game against Brisbane on the Sunshine Coast where Marty Tapau just lifted his knee right up to his sternum. Tapau had the ball, and all he was doing was trying to tackle Marty Tapau, and he just put his knee, and his sternum was already busted as it was. And for us, it's where we appreciate that something that the players are doing to go above and beyond, and that's why he won the award that year. And he was the best player for us that year as well, on top of that.
Yep.
But just defensively, I think last 2 weeks he's been struggling and getting the reads wrong. He's not trusting his inside man. I don't know if that's a thing or whatever, but he is getting it wrong. And I just wonder how his confidence is after those injuries.
Yeah, it's definitely taken a hit, mate. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work that out. That his confidence isn't certainly where it once was. But it only takes a game or two to bounce back from that, and Campbell's definitely the kind of bloke that could do that quite quickly. So yeah, I'm not too concerned with Campbell, but yeah, you're right, mate. It does. It takes a massive toll on you, physically and mentally, to come back from what he's been through. So might be a case of, again, just like Lockie, I think Campbell will be all the better for the games that he has played this year heading into next season, and hopefully, fingers crossed, mate, we can have a season next year that's relatively injury free.
Yeah, well, I'd love for him to be able to finish off the season and be able to get through the season without having any problems, because it'd be good for him to have a full off season, because he didn't have it last year at all. He kind of came back more towards the late end towards pre-season. Same with Junior Totola, where we've seen glimpses of it against the Storm, and again you think, yes, here he goes, and he regresses, but it's just those sort of horrific injuries. And I want to touch on our recruitment and retention. It's something that's been spoken about, and I know you're not a fan of it, and you've been outspoken a few times about it, but I mean, some we get right, some we get wrong. You can live with that while you're going well, and you're not going to get a whole perfect over the squad of 30 plus your extra, your development, 6 development players. You're not going to get it 100% perfect. You are going to have some players that you go, what are they doing in there? But I'm more worried about our reactive retention. And by that, I'm talking about, like I always say, there's certain players that only get 3+ years. See, they're reserves for your elite players. Cody Walker wouldn't get it now, but back then, Cody Walker would get it. Cam Murray's definitely in that picture. Those sort of players. But Isaiah Tass, I thought he had a really good 2022 season, and I wouldn't have had a problem with us extending for an extra year, possibly 2 tops, but just an extra year. We extended him for an extra 3 years, and to me, they're the sort of wrong moves, because you get stuck in. It's not just a salary cap, because he may not be taking much space up in the salary cap, but he's taking a spot in your top 30, a valuable spot. And I mean, he's not bad for depth, whatever, but you're not signing depth players for 3+ years.
No, certainly not. And yeah, mate, I have been a bit outspoken about that topic, and for good reason, because it's been bloody diabolical. I'm not here to, I don't want to, bag anybody more than, what I've probably already said, but like, I don't know, it needs to be looked into. Personally, mate, I don't know who signs Dodd to $700,000 deals at that club, but that's a disgrace. Mate, for an unproven English half. And mate, you have a look at the list of English halves that have come to play in the NRL, and it's not real impressive. And the reason for that is because the NRL is so much quicker than what the English Super League is. Forwards that come to the NRL, English forwards, seem to dominate and do quite well when they come over here. But the NRL is a different ball game to the English Super League, mate. And in terms of speed, and a lot of those halves, mate, just they're great, fantastic Super League halves, wonderful, but just not NRL standard.
Well, I think I'll quote what someone said to me. I won't say who it is. I'll keep who it is private. They said to me, Mark Ellison went over to sign an English forward, and came back with an English halfback. And yeah, so
If that's true, if that's true, mate, then I'm sorry, mate, but he needs to go. He needs to lose his job. That's. Mate, if you or I, well, not so much you can't really sack yourself, but if I was shit at my job, mate, I wouldn't have one. You know what I mean? Simple as that. And there's been a systematic failing over a number of years by that recruitment and development team, or maybe not so much the development we've got there, but certainly.
Well, no, you're right. You're right about the development, because the development was poor before, but we've now got steps in place with Brent Hill and Dave Ferner. There's announcements that we still haven't made. I've been told that there's a few forwards that we've signed that still haven't been announced. So they're certainly doing a good job now, but we won't see the benefits of that for another 2 or 3 years now, because that's where we were then. So the club's certainly in a bad position. We've heard Blake Solly come out and a few others come out and say we don't need forwards. They know that's not true. So I'll tell you right now, they know that it's an issue. They won't kind of come out in public and say. You always take what they say with a grain of salt. And I think there was a podcast the other day with Richo, is the fans don't know what happens behind the scenes. And we all see the final product, but we don't see what goes on behind. So I kind of laugh when we talk about that, because we try to get Kamikamitha from the from the Storm, and he asked for too much. We tried to get Royce Hunt from the Tigers. I think the Tigers signed him for like 600 and something thousand, or 600,000, which is ridiculous money that you're going to get for a 20 to 30 minute bench prop. But they try to use him as a starting prop, and now he's found himself playing, New South Wales Cup because he's been dropped. His form's not warranted. So we did dodge a bullet there somewhat, but it does show me that the club are looking at forwards, whether they're successful or not. Just because we don't get them doesn't mean we didn't try. So I think sometimes we've got to understand that whilst this is what's being said, it's not necessarily what's happening.
Yeah, but I don't understand why they got to talk shit like that, mate. You know what I mean? Just like come out and, oh no, we don't need forwards, but behind the scenes, we're actively looking for forwards. Stop being dickheads. Like come out and dead set say that we need forwards, right? And I got news for Richo too. The fans don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Well, the fans bankroll you in clubs, you big oath. You know what I mean? So be a little bit more transparent with people, and stop being a clown.
Well, I'll say this, and the reason you've also got to be protective of your players currently playing right now as well. So you don't want to kind of, and we've seen it with Canterbury, and with the Lockie Galvin signing it, that I think it won't be too much of a disruption, but we have seen that it has been a bit of a disruption, and so Gus Gould's gone out and got him straight away to kind of say, yeah, you guys aren't good enough for now. And it's starting to affect. I know the game against Penrith was a great one, but then they lost after being up 18-0 against the Broncos as well. So sometimes it's not great to come out and be too brutally honest. So I get where you're coming from, but for me, it's about the final product. That's what I want to see, the final product. And we've seen it all before. I remember Richo spruiking that he came up to me personally and he didn't tell me names, but I was down in Melbourne in 2005, and he was talking about that we've signed. He goes, they know who we've signed. We've signed these guys. We've signed some very big name players. And he was referring to Matt Orford and Stephen Bell. So it was about, because he said to me, he was talking about Ashley Harrison re-signing, and he said he knows who we've signed. We've signed some very good players, and they'll be announced shortly. And we know what history showed, because back then Richo was like, yeah, handshake deal's as good as signing on a piece of paper, where he kind of learnt the hard way. No, that's not the case anymore. So there's that you kind of, if you're spruiking that you've signed someone before you have, and then it doesn't happen, you end up with egg on your face. So it's better to keep that quiet.
Well, it's why you get the job done, mate, before you open your fat mouth. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, right? If South Sydney need me to go in there tomorrow, I'll give 6 of them a tap on the shoulder and tell them they won't be here next year, right? What do they want to do? Have a cry about it? Go into the corner and have a fucking cry about it then, mate, because you're not good enough. You're not NRL standard footballers. You are not good enough. Okay? It's okay. It's all right to not be good enough. There's 1% of kids that come through the junior leagues in this country, 1% that are good enough to play in the NRL. That means 99% of kids that play rugby league and people that are not, right? They're not kicking stones. Mate, they're out there playing park footy with their mates, enjoying themselves. If you pass it in the NRL, you go over to England, now you might get a gig in the top tier, or you might get a gig in the second tier, whatever, mate. Just go and earn some money, play some footy. But it's okay to be told that you're not good enough to play NRL and that you won't be at the club next year. I don't know, mate. It shits me when we've got to protect people's feelings. No, off, right?
No, it's not about protecting people's feelings. It's about not kind of ruining the balance of a season. And as I said, we've seen it with the Dogs that you kind of, when you put that in there, you can stuff up the flow of your season. Where, I mean,
the Dogs, anyway. Mate, the Dogs situation is heaps different to what we're going through. Heaps different, right? They're going to be fighting for a premiership later on in the year, mate. You know what I mean? Like that's. But you could see Gus Gould grooming this kid, right, for months, right? No, geez, Lockie Galvin's one of the greatest young halves I've ever seen, and blah blah blah, this and that, and he's this and that. He's going to be wonderful, and all of this stuff. and then repeatedly come out and saying, no, the Bulldogs are not interested in Lachlan Gower. We're not going there. We're absolutely not. Gus, come on, mate. You know what I mean? Like dead set. Like just come out and say, or better still, right?
Don't say anything.
Yeah. Or behind the scenes, go and have a conversation with your team, with your club, and go, what do you think about us maybe perhaps having a crack and bringing this young fella in, right? I know we're having a good season. Hey, I like the players that we've got here right now. Don't get me wrong. We are doing a bang up job. We're leading the comp, this and that, whatever. Have a conversation, communicate. But he uses his media platform to play ducks and drapes, and yeah, I don't know, mate. I'd handle a hell of a lot different to any of these blokes, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know a lot of the others, pretty much all the other CEOs, or the CEOs of the clubs, I know are very unhappy with how that all went about, and they're not happy with Gus Gould at all and his media presence, and they've certainly approached the NRL and want answers there. What defines bending the rules and what the rules are? They want to see the rules in place that are black and white, not, well, that's okay. So, but I'll move away from that and talk more about our players that we've got on our books for multiple years. And you look at someone like Sean Kepi that I know you're a big fan of. But we've got him on contract now, and yeah, we can shop him around. But what happens? How do you shop someone around? You can say, well, we can shop him around to the English Super League, but then what if he doesn't want to pick his family up to take him? It's a lot. Like what I'm saying is, we're not doing Supercoach here. The clubs aren't doing Supercoach, and a lot of fans kind of started playing Supercoach and things like that, and thought, oh yeah, we'll just shop him off here, because if that player's not wanted by anyone else, we're stuck with him. And that's the predicament we're in right now. I know there was a couple of players.
I thought it was 2 years. I thought it was 2 years we signed him for.
It was a 3-year deal. Sean Kepi. Because he is on contract he's still on contract next year.
That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, mate.
That's what we're discussing here, and where we're talking about the predicament of our recruitment, and a lot of it's reactive. Where I love Jack White as a player, and I think he's a very good player. But you look at value for contract, and you kind of say to yourself, we'll never signing him as a half. He was never going to be. We were kidding ourselves if he was going to be the one at the last 2 years, the last year of his contract, going to be the one to take over Cody. We've seen the other day, he didn't take that game by the balls, especially when we were attacking the line. It took Brandon Smith to come at lock to open up that game for us. So I think there's some games that he's played really well in for us and been our best player. I can count that on one hand how many of those games have been. And certainly he's one of our better players. He's got a lot of effort in that. But you're talking about a player that you're playing in centre where you could have got a young guy. We've seen a few of them coming through now where, what's his name? Oh, he's a young guy. We had Sai Karapani starting. And look, this is no way anyone in the club's fault. We had him in our system, and those that know, there was a reason why we had to let him go, and that was on Karapani himself. But you look at the value there that he gets and the input that he's getting out now this year under Madge, when and it's funny, you talk about confidence before, you look at Gurmat Shibazaki, all of a sudden having all the confidence in the world and bringing the best out of him. And he's now playing for Queensland. No one would have foreseen that, and I'm not going to hang the club for that because he played one game for us last year.
No.
That's on us, because all he was offered was a train and try deal with the Broncos, and he played really well for us. So, but we've got some wrong, we got some right, and we've got a few signings for next year of depth players. I watched the New South Wales Cup game at Brookvale where Manly played the Dragons. Jonah Glover, he scored a try, he set up another. He looked quite good out there, looked involved, especially Lockie Ilias looked really good the other day, and you see a difference in him in first grade and in reserve grade, because even last year when he played those couple of reserve grade games for us, he looked really good, he looked very involved. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we would have been better off keeping Dean Hawkins instead of Lewis Dodd. We would have got more out of Dean Hawkins than Lewis Dodd for a third of the price. But again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Dean Hawkins had more than enough chances for us. He didn't deliver, but he's now, maybe the change has done him a world of good, because he's shown that he can be decent enough as the depth halfback, which he is for the Eels.
Yeah, and you're right, mate. Like you can't blame the for the Karapani and Shibasaki and all that sort of stuff, mate. No, and even Hawkins, like you said, mate, he had plenty of opportunities, mate, to make that number 7 at South his own long term, and just couldn't quite do it. But good luck to them, those lads, mate. They're playing some good footy at the moment. And would have been like, you can't keep everybody. But it's one of those things, mate, where I don't know, mate. I think we need a factory reset at that club, with a lot of the people that have been there for X amount of years. I think we need some fresh ideas and fresh paint, a fresh coat of paint through the joint, mate. We don't necessarily need to, you got to have, we want South Sydney people involved in it. That's for me, that's BS, mate. You give the job, mate, to the people that are best at it, regardless of whether they're South Sydney people or not. You know what I mean? And I think it's time, mate. That's just my honest opinion, and I'm sure plenty will agree. I'm sure plenty will disagree.
Well, you say South Sydney people, and you mentioned that we had Madge who won us a premiership. He certainly wasn't a South Sydney person, but you even speak to him today, and he still loves South Sydney. We had when we were up in Brisbane, Michelle Booth was up there with us. When he ended up calling her, giving her a call. He had some tickets for the game for her and young Dylan. His love for South is still the same. Like he just loves the club. Another one, Sam Burgess. Like this guy had never had an inkling of South Sydney before he came over here. And you just look at him now, it's a club that he loves, a club that he knows. And then you get someone like Dylan Walker, who was a South junior, come through the club and all this. And he's still got a certain love for the club because he won that premiership, but he doesn't have the same sort of love that someone like Sam Burgess has. And it kind of shows you, just because you're not born into it, doesn't mean you're not South Sydney, because I never lived at all in the South Sydney area. I live out in the Bankstown district, and I have my whole life. And I'm just as South Sydney as anyone else there. If you cut me open, I bleed red and green just as much as anyone else out that is from the area. So you're 100% right there. But I don't know. I think we need to get one of those recruitment managers, the top-notch recruitment managers, and we just seen the Roosters be ruthless and get the Canberra one just recently. You had Peter Sullivan that was available from the Dolphins. He went to, was it Newcastle he went to? Mm-hmm. So these are the top guys that you want to get. He put that Dolphins team together. He got guys like Jack Bostock, Zai Katoa, those sort of guys. And
yep.
I mean, there's a lot of good young players there. Max Plath, those sort of guys. He got them to the club, and he's built that club from nothing to get them now pushing for in the third year, playing finals football potentially.
Yeah.
Whether they do or not, it's another thing. But you just need that sort of thing. We need to start being ruthless. I feel we're starting to do right things in the junior development. We'll see the benefits of that, where we see guys like Matt Humphreys, Taj Alvarez, Johans, Logan, Elijah Kung, those sort of players that are coming through that we got a lot of hope for. We had a few guys that we thought were going to make it. Hazen Millers, those sort of players, and even Jai Gray's somewhat playing first grade, but I look at him and think he's an all-effort player. But you look at guys like KOX. You watch him last week, how he played for the Raiders, and we don't see that kind of thing from Jai Gray. He's that guy that looks like he's going to bust through. We all get excited, but then he gets tackled. Whereas Kyo Weeks, he just boom, he's straight through, and that speed that he has is just you can't break it, can you? You can't.
Generational talents, mate. Generational talents, mate. Yeah, those kids like that, mate, are born rugby league players. And mate, it's a pleasure to watch kids like that run around. Not particularly when they're playing against you, but certainly when they're on, mate, they are just phenomenal footballers. But you're right, mate. Yeah, Jai just he is all effort, that kid, and I hope he sticks around for as long as he wants to, because he's just that kind of fella, and I think he'd be a fun lad to have around the team as well. But yeah, he's certainly not in the ilk of KO, that's for sure.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I don't think we're far off with our squad. I think change a bit of our depth, but with our starting side, I do believe we need a hard-nosed prop. We can't just rely on Keon every week. We need someone that's a hard-nosed prop. Probably need another depth prop to come off the bench. Hopefully, Junior becomes that player he was before. Don't know if he will, but hopefully he does. We need another one of those. We need a strike back, like a strike centre. That's something we do need. I don't. Hopefully Campbell can be that player that he was before, but he's certainly not a strike centre per se. But I thought we went in the right direction where we tried to get, whether you agree with the decision or not, but I think we went in the right direction to get someone of the talent of Taylor May. We were unsuccessful. And whether you want him on our side because of the issues that he has is another thing. But we're not far away, and possibly a halfback, whether that's we're developing in Matt Humphries. That's another thing, but we aren't far away from being a side that's going to compete with the likes of the Raiders, Dogs, and Storm. So, but the issue is you start looking at your depth and you're going, okay, well, you look at guys like on our top 30, you had Josh Schuster, hasn't played a game. It could have paid off. It wasn't too much. Bud Sullivan, we had him for 160,000 this year. I believe the Tigers are trying to play a little bit of hardball with us. They want us to spend a bit more this year, but I think we're in a position where if they really want to get rid of him, we shouldn't go over 200,000 for him, because I see him as a depth player, possibly a 14 to come on. I thought when he was playing the 14 role, when he came on, he added a little bit there. Unfortunately, the plans for what happened with him didn't work out because we had too many injuries where he was starting most weeks. But there's a few things that we need to change.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And like you said, we're possibly not that far off. The lads that are coming through there at the moment give me a little bit of confidence for the future in terms of our halves, and like you said, mate, earlier on in the podcast, a couple of the forwards, mate, retaining those guys was a smart sort of move, locking them down because in the long run they'll benefit us as well. But yeah, we aren't that far off, mate, in terms of. But yeah, so questions have to be asked with with some of the stuff that's going on there. And yeah, but I mean, I don't know. We'll get it right eventually, buddy. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, well, but the issue is when you're bringing a young half through. And we've seen it with Katoa. We've seen it even with Sam Walker before. You see these young guys come in and they show a little bit, but they're not quite there. It takes them they need to have 2 full seasons before they really get into their role. And this is the 3rd year of Katoa. We're seeing it now. Sam Walker took a couple of years and he started you're seeing him for. Even Nathan Cleary took a couple of years. So the problem is you're looking at getting Matt Humphries, possibly, like I'd like to see him play New South Wales Cup for the remainder of the year, get him going. I really hope that Lewis Dodd isn't with us next year because he's just taking up too much money. Even if we have to pay some of it, at least that money can be spent elsewhere because we're not going to be using him. It's unfortunate, but that's the cutthroat world that is the NRL. And Wayne does have a good habit of being able to offload these sort of players. I'm just worried that it's going to be a while before we get a decent halfback if we're relying on Matt Humphries, and maybe we need to go out and get someone that's ready now to play NRL, like the Dogs did with Toby Sexton, as a stopgap kind of solution until they got someone better, or the young kid that was ready to come through.
Yeah, we had a pretty good halfback a few years ago, mate. What was his name? That's right, Adam Reynolds. Yeah, we had a pretty good halfback, mate. But apparently Lockie Ilias was going to be better than Adam Reynolds, supposedly. So we let Adam walk. Another master stroke by South Sydney management, mate.
I'm not sure that's the entire truth there. There's a whole lot more to that story, but that's not my story to tell. And certainly there is fault on our side, but it's not as clear cut as what everyone makes out to be. So
Well,
I'll leave that
if he
there.
was good enough to be offered a 1 year deal, he's good enough to be offered a 2 year deal, mate. You know what I mean? I reckon that's where we're at. I know that towards the back end of Johnny Sutton's career, he was sort of only upgraded like 1 year at a time and things like that. But that was Johnny Sutton's situation, mate.
Yeah, but that also shows how much Johnny Sutton, he never wanted to leave the club. I think he only once ever spoke to another club, and that lasted all of 10 minutes throughout his whole career. So Johnny Sutton was just a rare killer fish when it comes to loyalty. We had other guys that were just as loyal as you. Look at Jason Clark, he was another one. He never wanted to sign anyone else in the NRL, even though we were kind of saying, no, we're not going to sign you. He decided, well, no, I don't want to play against you. I'm going to go overseas and move my family over there. That's a very rare thing, but there's a lot more to it, to Adam Reynolds. And yeah, you're right. I believe we should have offered him a 2 year deal, but I also don't believe he would have accepted the 2 year deal, even though they try to say he would have. There was never any 2 year deal from either side in negotiations there.
No, that's right. So we lost him, but you know, mate, they'll like we said, they'll work it out eventually. It's just too big a club, mate, to be sitting where we're sitting at the moment. And I think that, you know, I don't know whether it is the strength and conditioning stuff they're doing. I don't know what it is, mate. Is it the surface at Heffron? Mate, I don't know. But it just seems to be getting out of hand, and it's got to be nipped in the bud very, very quickly. Otherwise, it's going to be the standard for us, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I suppose you have to break down the injuries and kind of say, okay, what could be put on our training, our warm-ups, things like that, and what can be put on just rotten luck, like Brandon Smith, rotten luck. Bud Sullivan, broken leg, rotten luck. Cam Murray, I believe that's just rotten luck. I mean, how many people do their Achilles just at training?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's almost unheard of, mate. It's usually a game time where that sort of goes on you with that really high intensity stuff. But yeah, that's pretty rotten, mate. But you know, the amount of other sort of injuries, I suppose. And again, we look at Cody. Cody's getting on. He's going to have a hell of a lot more of these soft tissue injuries, mate, the further it goes. I just hope the club understands that. Yes, that is going to happen, Souths. Okay, so be prepared for it. Don't whinge when it does happen, because it is going to happen. The man's 35, 36 years old. We're not going to be able to squeeze too much more out of him.
Yeah, well, I guess for them, they're happy to get, say, about you're looking at probably getting 12, maybe 15 tops games out of him next season. If we do get that, that's quite, you can be happy with that. But it's about who we have to back up there. That's what you want. You want to have someone that's going to be there where we don't lose so much, and maybe start grooming someone to take over, whatever. I don't know the answer. And look, there's smarter people in there making decisions than us two here. We can sit here and chat about this.
Is there really though, mate?
There is. I know you kind of want to be in there. I certainly wouldn't, because I'll tell you what, if you and I were in there, there'll be someone sitting here doing what we're doing right now, taking the piss out of us. I know that, because you know, in rugby league, you can get 100 things right, but you get one thing wrong, that's what everyone focuses on. And I know these guys haven't they've got quite a few wrong, but that's the thing. We can sit here without any pressure on ourselves on making decisions. It's a totally different thing. But no doubt, if we were the other side, we'd have people on a podcast putting shit on us about the job that we're doing. And if you're not winning, the knives come out from everywhere. You start winning, and all of a sudden everything's good. It doesn't matter if you could have a really poor player 25 to 30, right? You could have those poor, but you look at Canberra. In is it Jed Stewart, Ricky's son?
Mm-hmm.
They've put him in the side, but they're still winning, so no one's really complaining about him much. But he's certainly not great depth, is he? But on the back of that side, you just put one guy in a very strong side, they can make up for his deficiencies. Where all of a sudden he can look okay on the end of a very great backline. So
Yeah, but
you can kind of get away with it. But
you have a look at the Raiders, mate. They KO Weeks at the back, and you got the young Stewart lad on one wing. I can't remember. Oh, they got that
Savage.
Yeah, Savage. Yeah, young Savage who was their fullback on the other wing. He's killing it. And they've got like that Islander lad in on one.
Sebastian
Timoko.
Chris. You got Sebastian Chris and Timoko, the centres.
Yeah, in the centres.
But you got Hopper while he's out injured.
But you look at that back line, right, and you go, geez, there's really two names in that back line that sort of stand out for you. But the rest of them, mate, they just do a great job. You know what I mean? They're not players that are on $600,000 a year or you know what I mean? But they just do a friggin' great job. And that's all you want from your players, mate, is to just put in 100% every week. And that's what those blokes are doing.
Well, that's what a great, like the recruitment officer does, gets these young kids coming through. We've seen it with Penrith where they had a whole bunch of kids that were coming through together, and it took them a couple of years, but once they did, they won 4 premierships straight, and they're now going on a run to possibly make it a fifth one. I think is going to be a bit tough for them this year, but I won't rule anything out with that side. And they keep losing players and bringing other ones in. I think losing Luai and Fisher and Taruva has kind of probably just broken them where they won't be able to do it, but they'll be there up in finals time. But Canberra are now seeing the benefits of that. And I mean, how many big names do Canberra put in their side to go out and buy? They don't buy them. They go out and they go to England. They got a couple of guys forwards from England, which is what we're meant to do. And we still may get one or two, but they just do it so well. And this is what I want to see from our club that we're doing. I want to see the benefits of these young kids, because we get excited about a few kids of late. And Ben Lovett was one that looked like, oh, this guy could be a decent first grader, but then that horrific injury in the grand final of New South Wales Cup. I believe it hasn't been announced, but I believe he's been medically retired. I have been told he has been, but I don't know if the NRL kind of allowed that or not. I don't know, but he's on the website. He's still under contract to us for this year, and it's a shame though. But he's doing a lot of work behind the scenes now. He's doing a lot of things. South are looking after him. Thomas Fletcher was one that we had hope for, and a few injuries kind of hurt him. But this year he's been playing regular New South Wales Cup. I don't believe South's going to re-sign him. I don't believe South's are re-signing Hayes Mellors either. I don't know if that's true or not, but he was starting to get some form there, but then he's out injured again. I believe that's probably the reason why. His body just isn't kind of handling it at the moment. So there's a lot of kids that over the years we do get excited about, but we don't see them step up. The last kid to come through really, I believe, well, you got Tallis Duncan now, but you had the likes, remember we had Keon coming through, and before that we had Cam Murray coming through. So we always had this flow on, but then it kind of just stopped where you could put a dash of young kids into an experienced squad, and then they'd develop and end up becoming leaders. We've seen it with Campbell Graham, who's a leader now, whereas he came in as an 18-year-old while he was still at school. Mm-hmm. Made his first grade debut. So I just want to see a change in the attitude of that these kids that we're getting, the ones that we're getting to be excited about, make that next step up.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. We do have the bye this week. This went a lot longer than I expected. I suppose there was a lot to talk about with the recruitment and retention. It's certainly a big subject, and I know a lot of people at home aren't happy about it. I know we've all got our ideas of about what we'd be doing, and my thing though is I don't want a band-aid solution. I know the likes of, I mentioned before, Brent Hill and also Dave Ferner are doing a great job with going out there, and they've got very limited resources because we don't spend the money other clubs do on our junior talent, but what they are doing is doing a great job there, and getting some young kids over here. We've seen the benefits of that this year with our Harold Matts and now also our SG ball side. And we got the visitor again, but I know our flag's not going too well, but a lot of the SG ball players are stepping up now playing. They're playing guys 2 years older than them. So we'll see the benefits of that next year, and then that'll trickle into the New South Wales Cup, and hopefully soon we'll see the benefits of that in first grade. But yeah, we've got a couple of games after that. We've got the Penrith game the week after the bye. We're playing out at Combank Stadium, so it's a Penrith home game. If you want to come join us, we got tickets for the GA South. Make sure you get your tickets there. We've also, the week after, we're playing in Gosford. The Burrow will be in Bay 24. There are tickets available if you want to join us in the Burrow, but I believe there'll only be a small amount because they have to reserve the ones for the members there to ensure that we do get in. But it's a nice ground up there. You certainly like it up there in Gosford, don't you, Mark?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, that's one of my old stomping grounds as well, mate. So, yeah, got a lot of good memories there in Gossy.
Well, we do play the Sharks up there, and I actually think I'm quietly confident that's going to be our next one. I can't see a world where we beat Penrith. I'll discuss more of the Penrith game next week with you. We'll get once the team's been announced and that, and hopefully we do get a few return players. Hopefully Latrell get through Origin tomorrow night. It is Tuesday here. By the time this is out, it's probably Wednesday already. So hopefully he does get through that, and he gets we get him at the back there for us, because we certainly need him. Him and Cody are our two players. They're our attacking weapons there, and without them, it shows we do have a lack of attacking options. So having them back will be a huge help to avoid the wooden spoon, which, I mean, I know some people are still holding on hope that we'll make the top 8. I think that ship has sailed. Once we lost to the Dolphins, I thought that was kind of it for us. But yeah, I know we have 2 extra buys to go, which will help us. But at the moment, I'm kind of a bit nervous that we could potentially get the wooden spoon with all the injuries we're having. But start getting back on the ship. Hopefully we do beat the Sharks, which is the one that I think we can do on Gosford. I'm not sure about you, but when do you see our next win?
Certainly not against the Sharks, mate. I'm probably leaning towards Titans.
Okay, well, we got the Broncos after the Sharks, and then the Titans. So another few more dour weeks for you. But I don't think the Sharks are going too well at all. I think they're struggling a bit, and although we may play them back into form, we're good at that this year. But I do up in Gosford. I do believe that you put Cody Walker, Latrell Mitchell in there, you get a couple more players back, and hopefully we do get the confidence. But we're doing that. But yeah, if you want to come join us for those games, they're where we'll be. But for now, I'm your host Josh, joined by Mark. Go the Rabbitohs.
Rabbitohs.